Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I may not need this, but I thank you all for coming out tonight and sharing some of your time for this event. But before I start talking a little bit, I want you to understand that the core denominator of every single one of us sitting here is humanity. So as I speak and as I talk, I'm talking from that place of humanity. Because we are the human race. Some people have tried to change that to another race. But it's the humanity of us all that connects us. So my name is Charles Hinsley, and I'm a co-founder of a grassroots initiative that's called America Can We Talk. And before I start more about that, I wish to take a couple minutes just to share some other perspectives regarding why I'm here tonight. I met Lyndon, as he just mentioned, a few months ago through a co-founder, or through my co-founder, Lynn McCoy, who unfortunately is not able to be here tonight. We met during a lunch engagement where we shared some great synergy in our conversation and some great unifying ideas about cultural issues. And it was from that conversation a strengthening of my belief that lasting goodness could inevitably prevail against all of our human despair if we genuinely exercise the power of truth and respect. Truth and respect. But it got deeper than that for me in that conversation, to the point where it also inspired me in my faith, and it uplifted my hope that there may be a chance, just maybe a chance, for truth and reconciliation of all of the isms that we deal with and face here in America. So tonight, I will talk and take a little liberty to speak very candidly for a few moments, but also to try to speak with a sense of genuineness and respect by stating that I'm here tonight for one reason and one reason only. And that reason is to challenge racism in America. By a show of hands, how many of you knew that last year, in 2019, was the 400th year commemoration of Africans being brought to this country against their will? Excellent. I appreciate that. But how many of you knew that of those who were brought, there was only 20 to 30 who initially were brought here for the exploitation of that human body? Just that small number of 20 to 30. But a few years later, that 20 to 30 individuals exponentially grew to over 10 million plus Africans, taken from their homeland, placed in a foreign land, to serve at the behest and the pleasure of an overseer, an oppressor. That's a very tragic and unflattering legacy for this nation. But when I learned of the commemoration events that were going to be occurring last year, it made me begin to introspectively reflect on the state of the union of our America. And how was that in connection with what we see and what we hear about the isms, and specifically racism? What had we learned in 400 years? What have we not learned in 400 years? Had it been 400 years of we the people? Or had it been 400 years of greed and lust at the expense of human exploitation, propagandized by the mantra, "In God we trust"? Those were just a few of the questions that stirred in my mind, challenging me on how to deal with this issue of the significance of this commemoration that's about to take place. But then a climactic moment happened for me while I was just watching the national news. President Trump evoked his racist attitude in one of his tweets. I won't quote the tweet because, quite frankly, I don't have very much respect for our president. But as a result of that tweet, I was compelled to write an article challenging America to have an open and honest conversation about racism and all the ugliness that's associated with it. My article was published in the News and Records on Sunday, August the 4th, just a few days before the national commemorations events were about to start. A couple days after that, and quite cheerfully I might add, I received a letter from someone who identified themselves as a white female. And in her letter, she expressed a genuine interest in what I had written. And it was from those separate events, the 400-year commemoration, Trump's tweet, my article, and this letter from what I now know to be my co-founder, Lynn, that's how my grassroots effort to start an open and honest conversation about racism here in Guilford County was launched. In short, the purpose of America Can We Talk is to bring a greater understanding of the historical legacy of slavery through civil discourse, just talking to one another respectfully, and to learn how that history has shaped the social consciousness of this nation and how we think about ourselves and how we interact about ourselves. For we all have been affected by this ism in some shape, form, or fashion. But additionally, my hope is that we can examine our differences through respectful, transparent, and engaging conversations with the goal of trying to develop ways that can help shift the paradigm of racism to that of a place where we can all share a common ground on respect for one another, regardless of our pigmentation. Racism has been in my face all of my life. Sadly, I suspect that it will remain in my life until I die. But before I take my final breath and go to the other side of eternity, I'm going to do that all I can to try to bring us closer to a place of healing and reconciliation for the wrongdoings of this nation, past, its present, and its potential future, because of the grand transgressions related to racism and the horrific consequences that it has brought about. So America Can We Talk is going to be my effort to get us there. And I heard a couple of people mention about King's birthday, and I think it is befitting to have a conversation around this on his birthday, because he genuinely stood for that issue. He is no doubt regarded as one of, if not the most prominent and influential African American leader of civil rights that this nation has ever witnessed. And for that reason, I challenge each of you to a call of action. That action being that you seriously examine your personal and most private feelings about racism, and then challenge yourself to elevate your entire mind, your body, and your soul, everything that you have, to try to elevate it to the aspiration of what Dr. King once said, and I quote, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." I repeat it. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And I sincerely believe that racism matters. So I ask you to join me in this most critical conversation that we can have that can transform this nation to be better and to live up to some of the creeds that it has in the Constitution that it claims to be founded upon. In closing, I'll just leave you with this final thought from Lucy Cochran. She is the executive director of the Hampton, Virginia History Museum. She's offered this perspective. If, for no other reason, it is important we have a conversation about what took place at Port Comfort in 1619, 400 years ago, people, because it forever changed the course of this country. Those 20 to 30 people who arrived here, not on their free will, not only because they wanted to come across the ocean and see a new world, but because they were considered to be less than human beings, and they could be mishandled and misused in any way that those individuals saw them wanting them to be used. And she finally says, the legacy of this event affects us all. And understanding this complex history, because it's multi-layered with all types of issues associated with it. So it won't be an easy process. But she said, if we can understand this complex history and the legacy associated with it, it will help us come together as Americans. Thank you.